Welcome to Malifaux University. 201. Using Soulstones. An important way to affect the outcome of duels and influence the direction of the game is through the use of Soulstones. Whenever possible, you should start each game with at least a couple on hand, though that will be determined by the nature of your crew and your preferred playing style. When you hire your crew at the beginning of an encounter, you add up the Soulstone cost of all the models you want to use except for the leader and the totem, which are both free to hire. The rest cannot exceed whatever limit you and your opponent decided, usually 50 Soulstones. Whatever the difference is between the cost of your crew and the Soulstone limit of your game is your Soulstone pool. For example, if I were running a Jackdaw Outcasts crew, I would start off with Jackdaw and Lady Ligeia, his totem, for free. I could hire Montresor, a henchman, for 9 Soulstones, the Midnight Stalker, an enforcer, for 8 Soulstones, 2 Dead Outlaws for 6 Soulstones each, and 3 Guilty models for 5 Soulstones each. Altogether, this is 44 Soulstones. 6 Soulstones is a pretty large pool, so I would consider hiring another model or perhaps attaching an upgrade for a couple of Soulstones to one or more models. We'll discuss upgrades in a later video. No matter what, you cannot start out with more than 10 Soulstones in your pool at the beginning of the game. Soulstones must be externally tracked in some fashion. Many players will use little rocks, aquarium gems, or other game pieces. You can also draw circles on a piece of paper, or use something as simple as a 6-sided die that you rotate down. If you use the Malifaux app, it will tell you how many you have after hiring your crew, and you adjust the total by simply tapping the minus sign. You may not keep track of your Soulstones in your head, as this is subject to error by accident or design. There are some important restrictions on Soulstone use. First, only Master and Henchman models can use them. Look for those station characteristics on your model's stat cards. Enforcers and minions cannot use Soulstones for any reason, unless they have a special ability like this Hanged model, who, although he is a minion, has the Attuned ability that lets him use Soulstones. Once you have the right model on hand, a Master or a Henchman in most cases, the next thing to remember is that you can use only one Soulstone at a time. Even if it's the last turn and you have 3 Soulstones left, you cannot use all 3 at once. Only one Soulstone can be used for one effect at a time. More about this later. What can you do with Soulstones? The first and most common ability is to draw extra cards during the start phase of an encounter. Normally, you draw up your control hand to 6 cards at the beginning of each turn. If you want to use a Soulstone at that time, you can draw 2 more cards and then discard down to your maximum. This can be an effective way of strengthening your hand if you draw mostly weak cards. Remember to draw the additional cards before you discard, just in case the cards you draw are worse than what you have already. This is the only situation in which the player is the one using the Soulstones and not a model. You can do this even if you don't have a Master, Henchman, or other model that can use Soulstones on the table. The timing of when you use a Soulstone is very important. Whether or not cards have already been flipped determines what you can and cannot do. If you are in a duel, opposed or simple, you can spend a Soulstone before the flip to either add a positive modifier, which means you get to flip an additional card and choose whichever one you want, or add a suit of your choice to the duel so you can select a specific trigger or meet a target suit requirement. Remember that positive and negative modifiers cancel each other out, so if you use the Soulstone for a positive modifier when you are already facing a negative modifier, it now becomes a straight flip, and you'll flip only one card. Let's take a look at both of these situations. Montresor, a henchman, wants to use his Curse to Watch tactical action. If he succeeds in this simple duel, a nearby friendly model can take a free action. This action comes with a stat of 6, but has a target number of 10. This means Montresor needs to flip a 4 or better in order to pull this off. Maybe in this game we've already seen many of the moderate and severe cards go by, and Montresor isn't sure he'll get the card he needs. As a henchman, he can use Soulstones, so he spends one before the flip to put a positive modifier on it. Now he can flip 2 cards and take whichever one he wants. In this case, he flips a 2 and a 5. He chooses the 5 and lets a friendly model do its dirt. In another situation, Montresor wants to toss the noose around a doppelganger, but she hasn't activated this turn yet and has the manipulative ability, which means that Montresor's attack will have a negative modifier. Since he can use Soulstones, he spends one to put a positive modifier on his duel. This positive modifier cancels out the doppelganger's negative modifier and means Montresor flips a single card in the attack. He flips a 4, which is added to his attack's stat of 6 for a total of 10. The doppelganger flips a 7, which is added to her defense stat of 5 for a total of 12. Montresor is losing the duel. However, because he did not have a negative modifier, he is eligible to cheat fate from his control hand. The other option before a flip is to use a Soulstone to add a suit to the flip instead of adding a positive modifier. While triggers will be explained in depth in another video, here's how this duel might play out with this option. It's late in the game, and the Neverborn crew has no Soulstones left and has depleted its control hand. The doppelganger has already activated, so loses her manipulative ability. Montresor makes his move and attacks with his noose. It comes with a stat of 6 and a built-in mask. That means no matter what the suit of the card he flips is, he can use the embedded mask to use the stagger trigger. Montresor has other plans though, and uses a Soulstone to add a crow to the flip. The doppelganger defends with her movement stat of 6 and flips a 3 for a total of 9. Montresor flips a 10 of rams, which gives him a 16 and 3 suits to choose from for his trigger. The mask was embedded in the stat. He flipped a ram, and he has a crow from the Soulstone. He sticks with the crow and triggers Execute. The doppelganger has no cards in her hand or Soulstones to discard, and consequently is killed after Montresor resolves the damage flip. All of that was in one option with Soulstones. Beware of the timing though. It's much like the timing involved in cheating fate. If you're in an opposed duel and both of you can use Soulstones, the attacker must decide to use a Soulstone or not first. If the attacker chooses not to use a Soulstone and the defender then chooses to use one, the attacker may not change her mind and then use one. The next effect of a Soulstone is to block damage. If a model that can use Soulstones is about to receive damage, it can spend a Soulstone before the damage flip to put a negative modifier on that flip. That can cancel out a positive modifier or make it so that the attacker must flip 2 cards and take the worst. Let's take another look at Montresor. In this scenario, he's had a rough time of things and is down to 3 health. The doppelganger tries to finish him off with her staggering punch attack, which has a 2, 3, 4 variable profile. If she succeeds in attacking Montresor, anything better than weak damage will kill him. The doppelganger flips a 13 and adds that to the attack's stat of 5 for a total of 18. Yikes. Montresor flips a sad little 1 to add to his defense of 6 for a total of 7. The difference of 11 between their totals means the doppelganger will have a positive modifier to her damage flip. Montresor has the Hard to Wound ability, which means all damage flips against him automatically have a negative modifier, but her positive modifier cancels that out for a straight flip. Montresor doesn't like the odds of this, so he spends a Soulstone to put another negative modifier on her damage flip. Now she'll have to flip 2 cards and take the worst of the 2. She flips a 10 and a 5, and must take the 5. That weak card results in 2 points of damage to Montresor, leaving him on the brink of death with 1 health, but he's still in the game. Finally, Soulstones can reduce damage, and this can be a real game changer. If a model that can use Soulstones suffers damage in an attack, even if it's enough damage to kill the model, you can use a Soulstone to flip a single card from your fate deck to reduce that damage. If you flip a weak card, you reduce it by 1 point. A moderate card reduces it by 2, and a severe card reduces the damage by 3. This is one flip, however, you are not allowed to cheat. Let's see this play out with Montresor and the doppelganger. Montresor is down to 3 health, and the doppelganger flips the 13 on her staggering punch for a total of 18. Montresor flips a 1 and has a total of 7. His Hard to Wound ability cancels out the positive modifier stemming from the difference in their duel totals, and she flips a single card for damage. She flips an 8, which would mean Montresor takes 3 damage, enough to kill him. Montresor still has plans for the rest of the game, so he spends a Soulstone to reduce the damage. He gets to flip the top card from his Fate deck and cannot cheat Fate from his control hand. He flips a 6. The moderate card means he reduces the damage by 2, so he suffers only 1 point of damage. To recap, you can use Soulstones in 4 situations. In the start phase, when drawing your new control hand, you may spend a Soulstone to draw 2 more cards before discarding down to your maximum hand size. Before flipping cards in a duel, opposed or simple, you may spend a Soulstone to add either a positive modifier to the duel or a single suit of your choice to the card you flip. When you're about to suffer damage, you can spend a Soulstone before your opponent flips for damage to put a negative modifier on the damage flip. Finally, after taking damage, you can spend a Soulstone to reduce damage by flipping a single card from your Fate deck and reducing the damage by 1, 2, or 3, depending on the value of the card. While you can spend only 1 Soulstone at a time, you can spend them one after the other if you have them. You could spend 1 to put a suit or positive modifier on your duel, then spend 1 when you lose that duel to put a negative modifier on your opponent's damage flip, and then spend 1 to reduce the damage. So make sure you always begin each game with a couple on hand. That's the overview of using Soulstones. Pick up a printable set of all the markers and tokens you need to play Malifaux in the Wargames Vault. If you haven't already, join our Patreon for early, ad-free access to all new content, and be sure to visit the Malifaux University gift shop for the latest in Malifaux-themed shirts, hoodies, drinkware, and more. Links are in the notes below. And remember, play friendly games, keep it simple, and have fun.